this one up there. 107. Can't get there from here. We'll say. Where is it? I don't know. You can't get here. Three, two, one. Commercial break.
Maffei
7. All right. Meeting call to order. For all those that would like to care to join us for a pledge of allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, Terry, can we start with a roll call, please?
Mrs. Fish,
Here.
Dr. Katachu,
Here.
Mr. Gordon,
Here.
Dr. Gursky,
Here.
Mr. Kirsch,
Here.
Mr. Reichert,
Here.
Dr. Uasa, Mrs. Edmeades, Mr. Huron.
Here. Okay, thank you, Terry. As a matter of record, there was an executive session this evening from 6:30 to approximately 6:53 where we had a discussion on a specific personnel matter. All right, next order of business tonight is our minutes. Board will take action to approve the minutes from our February 10th board meeting as presented. Do I have a motion to approve?
I make that motion.
Thank you, Christina. Second, thank you, Doctor.
Voice. Voice
Oh,
vote.
okay. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Next order of business is our administrative announcements. I'll start with our Columbia Montour Vocational Technical School. We did have our monthly meeting last week. I think it was last week. And one of the focused areas now is on the budget, and there will be a budget passed on to all the sending schools for consideration moving forward in that process. CSIU, Dr. Katachu, anything to report tonight?
The fortunate thing is that I was approved to continue my membership in the board for their until first they can go. I see it was mostly fine.
Okay, maybe everybody just remember that we do have folks out there in virtual land. If we could just speak into our mic so we can at least try to carry it elsewhere beyond the room. All right, thank you, Doctor. Mr. Reichert, Building and Grounds Committee.
Yes, I have a few things here. We chose KCBA to begin the feasibility study by touring all 4 buildings with architects and engineers on Friday, February the 12th, followed by interviews with Dr. Boyle, John Bickhart, and the building principals on the 15th of February. An agreement regarding the purchase of the Riverside property has been reached and will be voted on at this meeting. Middle school received a $49,500 PA food service equipment grant for a new walk-in refrigerator, and preparations are underway for the installation in early June. Roof warranties were discussed and put in place to defer the $400,000 partial roof replacement at Liberty Valley from 2022 until 2026. That's what I have.
Okay. All right. All right. Awesome. Thank you. Athletics Committee, Mr. Gordon, do you have anything you'd like to share tonight?
Nothing at this time, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Oh. Okay. All right. Just for a matter of record, it was pointed out that Dr. Yuasa is online. So as a matter of record, please enter that into the minutes, Terry,
Yes,
that
thank
he is
you.
in attendance tonight. Okay, thank you. All right, Policy Committee, Dr. Katachu, anything to report there?
We had our first policy committee meeting last week. Our meeting involved editing and upgrading policies, and that would be our job for the next many meetings to come. There are a lot of policies that need to be updated.
Okay.
That's what we did last week.
Okay, and just for the community, I did have an opportunity to poke my head in on that, and what's taking place under the direction of Dr. Boyle and the team, and with support from the board, is we're taking a look at all the policies and the practices that we're governed by, and making sure they're current, and making sure that they reflect where we are today, and they have the most up-to-date information with them. There's a lot of holes and a lot of discrepancies, so methodically we're going through those as a group, so that at the end of that effort, we're going to be in a lot better place than we were. So hats off for that initiative. I think that's real important going forward. All right, thank you. Okay, Superintendent's report tonight. I'll turn it over to Dr. Boyle.
All right, first off, enrollment. I want to make sure everybody hears. We now have 2,241 students in the district. There are 602 students in the primary building, including 81 that are pre-K students, which includes both Head Start and pre-K counts. We have 641 students at the high school, 507 at the Liberty Valley, and 491 at the middle school. One of the interesting things to note, and I'll be doing a presentation in a little bit, but in our Danville area school district cyber schools, between the e-learning and the Ironman Academy, we have 166 students enrolled. In the bridge program that we are running at this time due to COVID, we have 330 students enrolled. We have 128 students that are homeschooled and 75 students in the outside cyber academy. I wanted to make sure everyone is aware, and we'll be notifying again tomorrow, but March 1st is an Act 80 day. So next Monday is an Act 80 day. No students. All right. So we don't forget that. I want to also explain a couple different things from the community. The Greater Susquehanna Valley United Way had called me and asked me about having teachers and other staff who had not yet been vaccinated. And when they asked, we were offered to have 2 masks, KN95 masks, for each person that was not yet fully vaccinated. So they ended up providing us with 600 masks that are being handed over to the nurses, and they're distributing them in the building. So that is very good. Danielle Valkloff of Columbia Montour County helped with that as well, because she picked them up and brought them to us. So we really appreciated that. The school district has started a Geisinger Appreciation Project. What this project is each building is going to take a month from now till May, and they are going to be getting snacks and other things to send over to the Geisinger staff as a way to lift their spirits and show that we definitely appreciate everything they're doing during COVID period for the community. So parents, if you're out there and your kids are asking you to send snacks to school, that's what it's for. Also, I'm excited to say that on top of the grant that we got for food service, We were also given a $5,000 check from Giant Corporation for our food service program and our mail distribution. On February 20th, the Press Enterprise had a business spotlight, and in there was an article about the Ironman Cyber Academy and also an ad explaining the benefits of having students in that academy. So we want people to know what's happening here and what advantages they can have by attending Danville's academy instead of an outside cyber. And of course, our forensics team is forever doing wonderful things. They again have won the Pennsylvania High School Speech League District 9 Championships Friday the 20th. This is the 17th year in a row that they have won this title. So back to 2005, they have won the title for the forensics at the Pennsylvania High School Speech League District 9 Championships. Congratulations. It looks like I got a couple nodders out here. Are you on that group? Woohoo! Yeah, we have several. I don't have the list there, but we have several students, and there should be an article in the paper either today or tomorrow about it as well, because I had talked to the press. So yeah, you guys are doing awesome stuff. So thank you so much for representing us so well.
Congratulations.
All right, Chris, do you want to talk about the spring athletic registration, please? Doesn't sound like it.
Hello?
Oh, there you go. You got it.
Okay. Spring athletic registration is open. The first day, formal day for our practices is March the 8th. We collect all of our registrations through Family ID. As of a couple minutes ago, we have about 140 kids registered, and we're getting more and more kids are coming on and registering every day. We had our spring sports physicals yesterday, and we did physicals for approximately 40 students over at Geisinger Woodbine Lane. Most of our students by this point in the season have usually played another sport, either fall or winter, so we don't usually do as many physicals in the springtime. Just one more thing I wanted to add, our DHS drama production, Puffs, will be up and running. That's going to happen on March the 11th to the 14th, and we do have limited attendance and capacity in that, of which we're going to offer tickets first and foremost to families of the cast and crew, and then whatever tickets we have available beyond that, we'll do our best to get some students or some other people in. There are 3 different shows, and we will be doing a live stream on that as well. So people will be able to watch online. So stay tuned, and we'll share some of that information.
Thank you, Chris.
Awesome.
Cass know about the live stream?
Yeah, it's been discussed.
Been in contact with Mr. Harav, both Haravis about that one.
All right, just a real quick COVID report. The level of transmission last week were only 22 positive cases in Montour County, and what's very encouraging is the numbers are dropping every week. So over the past 7 days, there was an average of 2.1 new cases daily. Our high school and middle school returned to full in-person for the families that choose that model. Yesterday, there was a delay because of some weather events. I'm tired of weather events. And, over the past 14 days, there have only been 3 positive cases in any of our buildings. So that's pretty good news too. We've really turned a corner. One of the other things that we are trying to really address during COVID and working for the students is social emotional initiative. And do you want to speak again, Mr. Johnson, introduce our students, please?
Yes, I know you hear us talk at board meetings a lot about social emotional learning, about mental health, mental well-being, and especially the situation where we've been in this year, where so many of our students have had such a hard time seeing each other face to face. So we have 6 students here with us tonight, and they're going to talk a little bit about their SPM group. And I'll let Gabby in a minute start with that, explain what SPM stands for. But I want to introduce them before I get started. First, I have junior Lauren Hawkins, junior Chloe Hoffman, senior Lindsay Kashner, senior Gabby Hackett, senior Kendall Thompson, and senior Ben Bolger. And we're going to take a little bit of time, and they're going to take some turns. And I think 4 of them are going to talk a little bit about what their SPM club. It's a perspective club. They're here to give you the background and information on it tonight, hopefully to vote on it at a future meeting and make it a formally recognized club at the high school. So at this time, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Gabby. Okay.
Okay. Hi, my name is Gabby Hackett. SPM is a group, and it stands for Suicide Prevention Minithon, which a minithon, if you don't know, it's just basically kind of like a year, which it's usually August to January, but this year since COVID, we're going August to probably May. And it's just you raise money for like an event or just like a cause basically. And we're trying to raise money for 2 scholarships, the Kyle Kiz's one and the Jason Gordon one. So basically, I would just like to take a few minutes to kind of explain how SPM came about. So after a death, a friend of ours, he died from suicide, and it kind of affected us very deeply. So we wanted to take this to kind of spread awareness and remember him. So we created SPM, and I'm really nervous. As we created SPM, we're hoping to raise awareness, but we've already had a lot of people kind of show interest in continuing SPM in the next few years, and we're hoping to make this a club, so like at the school, so a lot of people can kind of be more involved and it can show a more positive environment, I guess. So I would like to introduce Kendall just to explain about what SPM would look like in the future.
Alrighty, thank you. Hi, I'm Kendall Thompson. I'm going to be taking a moment to go over the main goal and purpose of the SPM Club. So I would like to start out by saying that SPM is basically an environment to cultivate and create a more positive environment for students at the Danville area high school, as mental health has been apparently an issue within our community. As someone who has suffered from anxiety and depression in the past throughout 4 years of high school, this club, I see a lot of beneficial aspects to implementing this as a club within the Danville area high school and potentially within the middle school in future years. I would just like to say that there are 2 aspects of this club. There is a community aspect, and there's also a financial aspect, which is to raise money for the respective scholarships, pardon me, for the respective scholarships of Jason Gordon and Kyle Kijis, which are currently being withheld within the school district. There's also the idea that anybody can join this club. This is not subject to people who are suffering with mental health issues. This club is inclusive to people who aren't suffering as well, because we believe that being an ally to someone with mental health is equally as important. And so spreading awareness and overall the education on mental health issues is the overall mission of our club. I want to take the time to introduce Lindsay Kashner. She'll be talking about the membership aspects. Sorry, here she is.
All right, so we have Miss Morgan, who's a teacher at the high school. She is willing to be the teacher sponsor to like hold the meetings in her classroom, help them pick at events and meetings. Anyone can join 9th through 12th grade. Like Kendall said, we're trying to get it through the middle school in a couple of years. Right now we have Chloe and Lauren who are willing to continue it because they are juniors. The rest of us are seniors and we're leaving. So basically you have the president who will be in charge of bringing up ideas of fundraisers, running the fundraisers, events, everything like that. The vice president will assist the president in that long process. You have the treasurer who will be in charge of the financial issues and putting stuff into the bank accounts and everything. And then you have the person to run the social media pages. We have a Facebook page, Instagram page, and to help spread the word about events and fundraisers that we are doing. To be nominated, we'll hold a nomination at the first meeting. Whoever has the most votes wins, and you're reelected every year. So it's not the same every year unless you get reelected.
So we're trying to hold 2 meetings a month. Basically, the first meeting is open to anyone in the club, and that just basically kind of throws out the ideas of what events we could do or how to spread positivity. And then the second one, we would have basically just the officers kind of meet up and then talk about what events they talked about trying to do and how to get it going, how to like set up the events. And then we would try to have 1 to 2 per month. And then it's just basically spreading awareness and about suicide and mental health while continuing to keep a positive environment.
All of the events and activities and fundraisers are up to the discretion of the officers. So at the meetings, that's what they'll be figuring out. Some of the events we've already done, we held a cornhole tournament and we had a car wash, as well as at the bottom there, we painted rocks, a lot of the rocks that surround a lot of the buildings in the district. You just get some and paint some positive statements or just something to brighten someone's day. We're planning this coming year to hold a 5K, as well as a teacher-student basketball game. Dances could be something we will do in the future, as well as on the Riverside Bridge, we wanted to put notes similar to the rocks, something positive, something to lift someone's spirits. And oh yeah, so the next couple slides, we have some pictures and a video presentation for you.
Thank you so much for this. Is there anyone else that wants to speak, or are we all done? I think we're all stunned at how much these young people are doing. And I want to say thank you. And I look forward to bringing it before the board next time. to organize this as a true club so that we can move forward in a strong and helpful way. So don't ever, you guys should know where my office is anytime, any day. Just come by, okay? Thank you so much.
May I ask a question, Dr. Boyle?
Yes.
So you mentioned a teacher who's supporting you as your advisor. Is there anyone that's supporting the club on strategies, on things that you can do to help your peers or to advise your peers? Are we? Right. Right. You're talking about a real important subject, and it's difficult even for adults to talk about, let young adults who are dealing with it in the moment themselves. So just the advisor keep in mind that maybe there's things we can do, especially when peers are hearing from other peers.
Okay, the thing I wanted to impress is I happened to be in the high school when they were putting up their handprints and doing the wall. Mr. Mays and Mr. Grozier are both very involved. Mr. Johns is the advisor for all students' activities. So this isn't just one teacher. That's just where they'll meet. Okay. But we have the guidance office and the others all actively involved with it.
Right, because as they good. Yeah, because they're going to be leaders in their community, and kids are going to look to you, and there's that opportunity to feel like it's easier to talk to you than it is to talk to an adult. So for them to have the coping skills to be able to handle that, that's awesome. You guys did an awesome job. Thank you for bringing a voice to this.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll just echo everything that was just said. It's just absolutely touching. This is an immensely important subject, and the fact that you guys are taking hold of it and actually putting action together is just amazing. And I commend you guys for that. It's incredible. And please just continue down the path and reach out to any and everybody on this board, in the school, whatever you guys need. Just continue to keep doing the right thing, because you're making a big impact out there. So thank you guys very much.
Looking forward to you guys working with you.
Yeah. All right. Excuse me. Next order of business tonight is our first public comment session. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes. If you care to make a public comment, please keep them to the agenda items only. And also the practice is to say your name and your address before you make your public comment. So I'll start within the framework of this room. Does anybody in this room care to make a public comment at this time? No? Okay. Anybody out in virtual land care to make a public comment? Is Jeff's probably out there?
Yep. Please
Right,
raise your hand if you would like to make public comment in Zoom. No public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you. All right, next order of business tonight is we are honored to have Dr. Frank Maffei, Allison Hess, and Stacy Cummings. Oh, excuse me. Oh, absolutely.
Thank you, kids.
Okay. Yeah, if we can. Okay. All right. Thank you. And so we're honored to have Dr. Maffei and his team to be here tonight to put on a presentation and give us a view of COVID and some other aspects of the COVID in and around our community. So I'll turn it over at this point to Dr. Maffei.
So while they get the slides up, I did thanks Mr. Johns for letting them stay for a little bit. I just want to add my heartfelt thanks to very elegant words Dr. Boyle and the board have already said, but also to add that we would be privileged at Geisinger Pediatrics and Children's Hospital to partner with this club, which is just profound, that it's grassroots, peer-to-peer. We would be privileged to work with you. And I would extend that beyond the Department of Pediatrics, but also the Department of Psychiatry. So you have our, I think I know a couple of you, so you have our addresses, you know where we live, and I promise you that we will support that club. But thank you for all you've done with us. It's incredible.
Thank you for that, Doctor.
Okay. All right. So more thanks. I do want to thank the board and Dr. Boyle for having us back for an update. I want to thank the parents for allowing us to give some more information regarding COVID, and of course the student body, who's been through quite a bit in the last year or so. So I thought we'd start by just a couple of introductions. I'm going to do some of the presentation, but I'm going to ask Dr. Cummings to comment on some general pediatric and some pandemic-related issues. And I also have Allison Hess here, who's been an incredible resource for us at the health system regarding schools and universities. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. All right, so I thought I would break it up like this. I thought we would talk about our communities and then separate those communities into our nation, our state, and our local communities. We're going to talk about our kids. We're going to separate the virus from the pandemic a little bit, and you'll see how I sort of break that up. And we're going to put the slides back on, great. And then we're going to talk about our schools. And really, when I talk about the schools and I talk about this school district, I will have nothing groundbreaking to say. What I think I'll be saying is an affirmation of the great work that's done thus far. I was talking to Chris, both Chris's before the meeting, and I think pretty much everybody at Geisinger has just been incredibly impressed. You have been, as a board and as a community, incredibly thoughtful, incredibly meticulous. You've driven decisions using basic science, and you've built consensus, and you've provided options to families and choices. And I think the success is because of the incredible work and dedication of this board and our parents. So when we do get to the schools, I think it's just going to be an affirmation of what the hard work that you've done thus far. But let's talk about our communities and where we are, because sometimes a visual to see where we are will give you an idea of where we've come from. So next slide, please. So we're still heavily in the pandemic. We are starting to see some improvement, but make no doubt about it, there are an enormous amount of people that are suffering from COVID-19. We've lost 500,000 people as of yesterday, and we are likely to lose more. The decline in the case prevalence is certainly encouraging, but it should not be misconstrued as this is over or anywhere near being over. So let's just look at the next slide, and I think the next slide will tell you, I'll give you some perspective. Okay. Okay, and I think I have a line that if you tap, there'll be a line that'll go across. Let's see if that'll happen. If not, I could just, perfect. Okay. That first bump was March, April. Everybody's hair was on fire. We didn't know what was going on. We did not know what to expect. The hospitals were becoming overrun in certain states and cities. It was a matter of resources not being able to be delivered and people dying because we did not know how bad this was becoming, and we were not prepared. It felt like a war zone. And in certain cities, my family's from New York City, it was a war zone. And we had a little bit of a respite, I think, over the summer. We started to see some decline. I think we were outside. I think that was a big, big factor. We were outside. But I also think that we were adhering to some sort of public health mandates with social distancing and masking, and ultimately we saw a decline. Several things happened. I think the spread of the virus became far more prevalent, and perhaps we let our guard down a little bit, and then we had some holidays and so forth where there was a density of population so that the virus could spread more readily. And then we had that mountain. And that mountain really has been October to now, right? I draw that line there because look where we are now. We are still above the COVID-19 or the viral prevalence that was back in March. We're still above that. The good news, and I'm not here to be, sort of the bearer of only bad news. The good news is we've made some incredible progress, enormous. Let's go to the next slide. Let's look at our state. Our state has done incredibly well, okay? And you can see I put this as a comparison between New Jersey, New York, PA, Ohio, Maryland, and PA is blue. And you could see this really does look very much like our national curve, right? So we are in the state of Pennsylvania seeing a decline in the prevalence. But again, if I look at that line to where we were in March, we are still above even the highest point we were in March, April, as far as disease prevalence and so forth. Some other good news is the case fatality rate has improved over time. We've begun to understand this disease. We have new modalities in treatment, and we have had some successes where in March and April, perhaps we would not have. So the good news is we are on the downslope and things are looking better. But again, the main thing that I wanted these two slides to show is we are not in its overland, not even close. So we have to sort of maintain that vigilance. We have to maintain the masking. We have to maintain the social distancing. We have to be careful about communal gatherings. You just can't quite say it's over by a stretch, okay? It's never going to be truly over. Like any virus, it's going to stay with us. What we're going to do is manage it. We're going to manage it with immunizations and appropriate practices, but it's not going to magically go away. As much as I want it to magically go away, it's not. Let's go to the next slide. So we're better, but not good enough is what I put that up there. Next slide. The next slide looks at local, and this is sort of county-wise. We, and finally, almost every county there is on a downslope, which is great news. And so it does mirror what's happening statewide and nationally. I think some counties are doing far better, and I look at Montour, and you look at Montour, just in early or mid-December, January, we were at, 1,000 per 100,000 as far as positive tests. And right now we're down to 422. It's great news. It's great news. Now, one would say, well, Frank, that's got to be the vaccine. Not really. It's not yet, okay? It certainly may be having an effect, but the main thing is adherence to the public policies that we know work. So let's go to the next slide, please. And this is what works. And we have scientific evidence to say that when we don't adhere to those policies, especially masking, we see a significant increase in the prevalence of the disease because of the ability for it to be transmitted. So if you look at that reference point there, that is splits before a mandate about community face masking when in public and then after. And you can see that there's a decline, and anybody knows statistics, those confidence intervals are pretty tight. It really does work. It really does work. Is it easy? Absolutely not. This school board has struggled with not easy and understands that in order to keep our kids safe, you have to do the difficult things, and that's adherence and compliance. So it is good news, and I want to tell the students it is good news, but we can't let our guard down. It's not time to think that this is in any way, shape, or form done. Next slide, please. I love this question because it's a good one. What about herd immunity? We may get to herd immunity. That's the goal. But we're not there yet. And remember something about herd immunity. Herd immunity does not eliminate the virus. It just gives more resistance to transmissibility because you don't have the virus hopping between everybody who's susceptible. You've almost protected the people who are still susceptible with those who are vaccinated. We still have a lot more to do in the vaccination realm, right? So right now we're vaccinating our most vulnerable populations, those in the 1A chronic condition group, but it's going to take a while until the general population is is vaccinated. The other thing about the youngsters, about our kids, we're only really ready to vaccinate 16, 17-year-olds, right? 18-year-olds are considered adults, but 16, 17, 18, because only one of the vaccines have been approved for that age group. There's a lot of great work happening down to age 12, but we're not ready yet to roll that out. And that's going to be probably, I think at the earliest, 6 months, probably more closer. I'm looking at my vaccine expert over there. 6 months, 9 months. She's now really nodding when I say 9 months. So I think we have to be patient with, protecting our kids. Now, there's good news about our kids, and I'm going to talk about that when we talk about the virus. Next slide, please. I don't think I'm going to go through this in great detail, but those are the vaccines that are out there, and it's just the, I think the next slide will separate the Moderna and Pfizer. But here is how good these vaccines are. Okay, 95% efficacy. They work 93 to 95%, and that's both Pfizer and Moderna. So these are great vaccines. There are others that are coming that may actually be just single doses and so forth. We're not there yet. This is what we have. This is what's working, and we're very, very pleased at how they're working. Okay? I'm not going to get into details about variants. I'm not going to get, although most of the variants are covered by the vaccines, or future trials. But this is what we have right now, and we're thankful we have it. Next slide, please. So the Pfizer group is the only one that's going to help our children who have chronic conditions. And in the Department of Pediatrics, Stacy and I and a lot of great people are working to identify those groups and tier them appropriately. Next slide, please. All right, our kids. Okay, so I've been saying this for a number of months now, and it's become almost sort of in my head a rolling, clip, which is you've got to separate out the virus and the pandemic when it comes to our children, because they are profoundly different in the manner that they impact our kids. Profoundly. So let's talk about it. The virus. Most of the youngsters here in this room who are doing this great work, if they get the virus, they're going to be fine. They're going to be fine. It has a very, very low morbidity and thankfully mortality rate. Our kids weather the virus exceedingly well. Okay, it's not absolute though. Youngsters who have comorbidities sometimes get sicker. Okay, chronic lung disease is one. Interesting. Obesity, which is an important one in adults, is turning out to be an important one in children as well. Okay, but even youngsters who have chronic conditions still weather this storm fairly well. So it has an exceedingly low mortality, and I would say a low morbidity as well. The interesting thing that is very unique to pediatrics is this delayed manifestation of COVID. All right, so this is the MISC, multisystem inflammatory syndrome in children. The good news that I could share there is even those kids are doing quite well. Okay, but it is unique. It is we're seeing it in youngsters. We probably have seen, believe it or not, about 20 cases at Geisinger alone, and thankfully all of the kids survive. They do quite well. They do require more than just regular routine care, sometimes critical care. Then I'm going to separate the pandemic, and when I get to the pandemic, I'm going to give the mic to Stacy Cummings. But I will tell you, we need to sort of think about how profound the effect of the pandemic has been on our children. Not the virus, the pandemic. Social isolation, loss of in-person education, loss of this safety net. This is one that's huge. Child abuse reports fell during the early parts of the pandemic. I wish it was because it wasn't happening. But what we're finding out, it was happening. But we didn't have the eyes of our teachers, of our clergy, of our coaches to identify children who had neglect and abuse. This is huge. And we're starting to see how detrimental this has been for our children. But I'm going to go to the next slide. Talk about the virus really quick. That's what I pretty much told you. We have a lot of cases, but the vast majority of the kids do fantastic. Only about 1% to maybe in some reports 3% of kids require hospitalization. They do exceedingly well. In the United States, mortality rates in some states are 0. Some states have reported no mortality. In other states, there have been a handful, so anywhere from 0 to 0.25% of all COVID deaths. But that's up to, some of those reports are up to 21 as well. Even children with MIS-C do quite well, and the mortality rates there are very good. So again, good news from the virus front. Right, next slide, please. People say why, and I love this slide. I'm sorry, it's a little scientific, so it's for our bio students who are interested. But why? Why do kids do better? Well, the obvious things are, as adults, we beat our bodies up, and perhaps we have more chronic conditions. Perhaps we're making bad choices. We're smoking, maybe drinking too much, whatever it is. But there's more to it than that. Kids not only are healthier, but they may have some immunity that we didn't appreciate because they've had other coronaviruses in recent past. They may have some cross-reactivity of immunity. They are less inflammatory. They less tend to clot. So our kids are healthier. They do real well. People are talking about, is it because they have vitamin D levels that are higher, melatonin? We're going to find out. But the good news is truly our children do far better with this disease. All right, next slide. I'm going to stop here. I'm going to hand it over to Stacy Cummings. And the reason why is Stacy's our vice chair of pediatrics. She is seeing your children in the office. She is seeing your adolescents in the office. When I see COVID, I see it in the ICU, right? I'm at the other end of the spectrum. That is a fraction, a sliver of what the pandemic has done. What she's going to tell you about is really what she's seeing day in and day out on how COVID-19 has affected our children. And Stacy, thank you.
Thank you. One thing I will say is a majority of patients I see in the outpatient world in general pediatrics, they look like any other common disease. So they look like the flu, or they look like the common cold, or they look like strep throat. On one hand, that means it's really hard to differentiate from everything else that we might see. But on the other hand, that means they're doing quite well. But there are things that kids are seeing that are very different. And I think any of these 6 high schoolers could probably say they live all of this every day. There's changes in routines. There's a break of continuity of learning. There's a break in healthcare. There's a break in their social network. There's a break in them being able to see their social contacts. It's just not the same. And even as things have gotten better and school has been able to be in session, the things Dr. Maffei alluded to, I'm still not sure we've seen the end of that. So as we even are able to do more things over these next 6, 9, 12 months and get into more of a normal routine, I am concerned that there are things that we just haven't been able to see as far as things that happened at home that we won't know about for a while. So the change in routines, adolescents have struggled just because of that change, from choosing to skip in-person gatherings to consistently wearing masks. We have stories of little kids who now don't know what to do when they see an unmasked face. They think it's very odd because they're so used to seeing everyone masked. The break of continuity of learning, school closures, even just last week with the snow, is very disruptive, but even more so when it's virtual versus not virtual. It lessens social interactions. The developmental services that school is instrumental in providing, from occupational, behavioral, speech therapy, physical therapy, those have all changed in the students who need those. There's anxiety about what does it mean to go back in person. There's anxiety about being virtual and how different that is. There's Zoom fatigue. I have elementary school kids and I hear about the fatigue of being on the computer. Healthcare has been greatly disrupted. We've been very lucky at Geisinger to be able to put some measures into place that have allowed us to continue to see well patients in a safe way, slightly separated from sick patients, and maintain our immunization rates. But dental medicine has been greatly affected, and we still have families that aren't comfortable coming to see us because we are a healthcare institution and they are afraid of what they'll be exposed to by coming to see us. So routine care is down. Next slide, please. Significant life events. I think this goes for every single one of us. I don't know a single person who hasn't been affected in some way over this last year of some life event. So physical distancing, you can't give hugs the same way. You've missed birthdays, you've celebrated graduations, proms, homecoming, you've not had vacations. You may have had a funeral and you just couldn't celebrate that person's life in the same way you would have otherwise. So all of these have been significant, but much more significant in kids who are developmentally trying to learn how to handle these. It's hard for us as adults, but it's much more significant for them because they're learning those skills that hopefully we've been able to gain over a few more decades at this. And then just the loss of security and safety. Economic loss has been huge, and families have felt this, and adolescents and young kids certainly are are aware of their families going through this, and even if they haven't experienced it themselves, they do internalize it because they're hearing about it from their friends. Next slide, please. So I guess in response to the mental health related concerns, it's very appropriate that this group came to talk about this being a club tonight, because this is a huge hot topic for us. Mental health was of desperate urgency even before the pandemic, but since the pandemic, you can see there that it has just continued to increase. And also, there are probably cases that we may not know about because of lack of access, either through not being able to come in to see us for well child care, or not being able to be in the school and have access to resources that students are used to. Dr. Maffei, do you have anything to add?
Thank you so much, Stacy. And, just to drive the point home, okay, more children will die of abuse and suicide in the state of Pennsylvania than they will die of COVID. Right? So we have to understand the virus is one thing. The pandemic and its effect is entirely different and is profound. So thank you, Stacy, for giving that perspective. Next slide, please. All right, so I think to a lighter portion of this is what has been the response of our schools. And I said it earlier, and I checked with Chris to make sure that I had things right. The last time we came, you guys were sort of thinking through what were the next steps, how were we going to open and so forth. And let's just talk about that. That was not, as a parent, I watched the school board try to gain understanding and consensus. There was no quick mandate. There was no, we're going to do this and we're not going to discuss it. Not at all. It was as thoughtful and as scientifically based as I could have hoped as a parent. And I was impressed. I truly was. I went and I said, well, how do I really tell the school board that they're doing a good job? And I said, well, I could just say it because I'm a parent, or I can go to our national experts, which are the AAP. American Academy of Pediatrics has recommendations for guidance for schools as far as how you should be approaching COVID-related issues and openings. And I'm not going to go through it all. I'm not, because I'm already over time. But I could put a check mark next to every one of them. Next to every one of them. I think about this very, very much a community-based, community-wide approach that really takes into account CDC guidelines, DOH guidelines, medical recommendations, and really was able to come up with a plan that, again, I think was very, very acceptable to any expert, and as parents, I think most parents. So I just want to just leave those two slides up there for you guys to look at, but I go to the last slide, I think. I want to just stress that the only time that the AAP bolded anything in their statement is that. The AAP strongly advocates that all policy considerations for school COVID plans should start with the goal of having students physically present in the school. When you do everything that this school board has done and to sort of mitigate the risk and to maximize safety, our kids can come to school if the parents choose to allow them and be safe, and really perhaps minimize some of the impact that this pandemic has had. And that's all I'll say. Allison, any comments or?
I think just real quickly because of time, again, just want to echo Frank's comments. Spent significant amount of time with many schools preparing and planning, and I just want to say it paid off. And I think going into the fall school season, everybody made the assumption schools were going to be the super spreader events, and all of the mitigation steps and everything that went into practice proved that that's not the case. And you guys have just done a phenomenal job. So thank you to the students, because we know that has an impact to you as well, but also the administrators for taking the time to thoughtfully plan for that.
May we ask questions?
Sure.
You made a point, Dr. Maffei, of talking about the virus versus the pandemic. And these students did an awesome job tonight, but they brought to the forefront that our kids are really suffering. I do this for a living. What I am finding is that I don't have resources for these kids. We don't have the mental health resources in this area to be addressing what you are identifying as more of the pandemic. And that was what scares me. And that's why I asked the group to have somebody to advise them, because we don't have those resources. I have kids who need mental health services, who have been approved for mental health services. There are no bodies to fill those jobs. There are no agencies to fill those jobs. There are no psychiatrists, pediatric psychiatrists. So I don't have places as a professional to go to get my kids and my students the help they need. So what is that? What kind of things are you hearing?
Yeah. Well, a very sad reality. And I wish I could say that this is not happening across the country, but it is. There is an absolute crisis in behavioral health, and the needs by which to serve our children are not there. They haven't been there for years. What's happened is the pandemic has magnified it and has forced us to say enough. So there are some innovative things happening. I think Geisinger is working very, very hard. We have a new chair of psychiatry, Dr. Coffey. He is looking at innovative ways because you're right, if the bodies aren't there, we have to look at something else. We have to look at taking social workers and using them in perhaps manners that we're not used to using them in, but having them there as a resource. Educating pediatricians to do a lot of the psychology type of work in their office. So years ago, we were able to say, okay, we'll refer to pediatric psychology. Now we actually have a curriculum for pediatric residents to learn those basic fundamental knowledge points to dealing with suicide, depression, anxiety, ADHD. You're absolutely correct. I wish I could tell you that there's something in 2 to 3 months. I think there is something, but I think it's 2 to 3 years. But in the meantime, I think we have to be innovative. What your students have done, have presented before, is probably as important as anything that we could do on the back end. Because what they're doing is grassroots, peer-to-peer, giving another student access to somebody who cares, who's going to be kind, who's going to listen. I think as parents, being open to re-education as far as identifying things that perhaps, years ago we would say, well, that's okay. That's just part of growing up. Well, sometimes it's not, and we have to be able to identify those opportunities. But I think what we heard from the students today is incredible, and something that we would love to partner with them.
Awesome. Thank you.
Dr. Boyle, it's Jen Gursky.
Yes, Jen.
I just want to say first thank you to the Geisinger team that was here this evening, Dr. Maffei and his team. I really appreciate hearing from you and knowing that it's important to get kids connected to one another, I think seems to be the underlying message that I'm hearing here. I know that as a district, we have worked with the Geisinger residency program, and I heard you bring that up tonight. And so I'm not sure the status of that and what we can leverage through that service, but I would like to just kind of throw that back out to the district to be continuing to think about how we use that residency program if it's still in existence. The other thing is that we're fortunate as a district that this board has invested in intervention specialists where many schools have not yet made that leap, although I know that their time is very limited with a lot of students. We only have, I think, 4 across the district, which is a big number, but at the same time is a small number. And so I know that we've talked in curriculum council, the curriculum meetings, about how we're leveraging classroom supports. I know Mr. Wynn has talked to me a little bit about some of the things that they're doing in the high school to get that stuff in the classroom, and also so it doesn't fall at the feet of just the guidance counselors. So I just would continue as a board member to say that I fully support us looking at this at all levels. I love what the kids are doing. I've seen it on social media. Everybody in the Suicide Prevention Club is doing a phenomenal job. Hats off to you guys. You're doing a great thing. I just wanted to say that I think we have a lot of resources that if we can figure out a way to get them from classroom to student to the community resources and really look at what that framework looks like as a district, you know, that planning is going to be important for us moving forward as a district. And I would support that as a board member. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you to both groups. Sincerely, this is an incredibly important topic. Hard to sometimes get your head around it. But needless to say, it's the most important thing that we have to always consider. And I think the way that Dr. Maffei and his team broke it down into that two-pronged look at it, which is the virus itself and the pandemic, and spoke to it in that context, means a lot, because I do know that there are still people that some way, shape, or form don't believe that this is all that we know it is, and it's challenging for us to continue sometimes to move forward. So, but anyway, there's no more questions. I just want to thank you guys again for taking the time to come here tonight and help us get a view from your
Thank you guys. You
perspective.
did a really nice job.
And
We
you
really
guys as
appreciate
well.
your efforts.
Fantastic work. Keep it up. If there's anything we can do to support you or any other needs, please reach out. Thank you.
We're going to let you go now.
Yeah.
You may go.
Well, it's got to stay on to be able.
All right. Moving on through tonight's agenda. We're going to have a presentation from Dr. Boyle on cyberschooling. So I'll turn that next segment over to Dr. Boyle.
All right, thank you. What I want to do is, go back around and talk about our Ironman Cyber Academy and some things that are happening, and have somewhat of a comparison again as to what's happening in cyber charter schools, because this has become very significant across every district in RIU, in the fact that the costs of cyber schools that are outside cyber schools are pretty steep, and it has certainly impacted just about everybody's budget significantly. Next slide. So there are currently 14 Pennsylvania cyber charter schools, but people continue to request having a charter school charter or certificate named. This started about 23 years ago, and what they were saying was they needed to improve student learning because they were saying that public education wasn't doing a good job. I mean, we continue to hear that today, but yet we're putting out some of the best leaders that there are in this country from public education. So as we look at data and research related to charter school performance, that indicates that that's not the case at all. All right, they aren't improving student learning in any way, shape, or form. So some of the big examples of this are the 3rd grade English language arts proficiency and 7th grade math proficiency, and they were going to be the 2 earmarks that were to be looked at. So we'll be looking at that a little bit later. There are 4 reasons to encourage our legislators to reject opening any more cyber schools. 1, there is a definite lack of performance. We don't need any more. There are 14 in the state, with 13 having unlimited seats available. The funding is broken. It's costing over $12,000 per student for a regular education child, over $22,000 per student for special education, and they were the figures from August 2019. And one of the really big significant issues for the district is there's a lack of oversight. We are monitored in every way, shape, and form as a public education facility. we have to adhere to attendance. We have to do so many things. We have a local school board that oversees what we do. You know, in 2019, 10 of those 14 cyber schools had expired charters, and no one has stopped them from continuing to accept students. Next. This is the growth of charter school payments. So when it began, or not began, in 2007, when it started, it was pretty significant, but you know, the red was the enrollment, and the blue is the cost that it's happening. And it wasn't horrible at the start, but you can see how it is becoming further and further divided, and they're getting more and more money, not doing any more service and not having any brick and mortar to have to take care of the property or do it, many of the things that we have to do and that are mandates for us. Go ahead. In this slide, I'm showing you what's happening at Danville. Hit it again. Okay, one more time then for me. This is the outside cyber school enrollment for Danville. In August, it was 34. Today, it's 75. And you can see they're the various cyber schools that we have students attending. And when we look at that, our cost for students in regular education is $738,815.02. This is what we projected cost for the year. Our projected costs for the students in special education, because there are 17 of them, are going to be $383,683.37. That's enormous. It really is ridiculous. So when we look at our own personal Ironman Cyber Academy, another one, Rich. All right. This is where we have 166 students, and we've done a budget calculation. I shouldn't say we, I should say Bobby has done a budget calculation, and it'll be approximately $4,003.81 per student. That includes whether they're regular education or special education, because we are using the personnel that we already have on staff that are supporting these students. They're not losing their Ironman education. They're gaining everything and having an opportunity to have it virtual.
And I do want to note that that budget includes retro pay for teachers that isn't typical for this year. It also includes Chromebook purchases that we don't buy every year. So that number is actually inflated. And it includes our
the teachers of record.
Yeah, it includes teachers of record. It's a full encompassing expense. So that 4,000 is actually inflated for this year. It's actually less than that on a normal year.
Would be. Next, Rich, hit it once. Okay. That's telling us that if these students would be in outside programs, 121 of them are regular ed. That would be $1,541. Yeah, $1,541,320.99. And special education students, we have 45 that are in our programs, and that would cost us $22,000, or yeah, $22,000 if they were in outside. It would be $1,015,632.45. We are talking well over $2.5 million that we are saving by having this program. All right, so I think that's pretty significant. So hit it. There it is, $1,892,321.41. That is a savings. And then we subtract the 600,000, but yes. So that's exactly what we have for savings, even with what we're spending. When we look at outside cyber schools, in this case, the red is school districts, the blue are charter schools. The dark blue isn't a brick and mortar charter, which we don't deal with, but all combined, all cyber charter schools, which is in the gray. So that's what we're talking about. The red is the average graduation rate in 1819 for all public school districts in the state, where the average, and that is 88.4% graduation rate. When you look at the gray box, They have a 54.6% graduation rate from the cyber charter schools. Next. So what this equates to, and this comes out of the PA charter change because there is a lot of political things happening right now. There are bills being introduced to change the funding formats. The governor has talked about it in his budget. So, you know, if you have opportunity to talk to your legislature, this is a good topic to try and talk about. But each year, a charter school student loses 118 days worth of learning math compared to what's happening in our traditional school districts. Keep in mind, there's only 180 days in the school year. On average, the charter school proficiency on a state test is more than 20% lower than students in a traditional school. Next. These are the graduation rates from the Danville e-learning academy. This is something that was started several years ago. Dr. Gursky was a big part of this and helped to design it. And as you can see, in 2015, 2016, and 2017, we had 100% of the seniors who were participating graduate. In 2018, we had a potential of 26 possible students, and 25 of them graduated. 2018 and 19, we had 18 students and only 15 graduated. So that was our dip. And then last year, it was 10 out of the 11 possible graduated. So you can see the graduation rate with having contact with teachers and being able to come into our buildings and continue to see guidance counselors if necessary has a tremendous value. What this is showing you is the proficiency gap. Now we're getting into testing. We didn't have testing last year, so we can't do a lot of comparisons most recently, but this is the testing across all school districts and all cyber schools. All school districts are in the blue, and you can see their scores are a great deal higher than what is happening. And when I look at grade 3 ELA, which was one of the target points they had talked about, it was 41.8% of the students were proficient or average or proficient or advanced, whereas in the school districts it was 64.2. So that you can see the huge difference. And for the 7th grade math, there were 15.6% of the students in the cyber schools were proficient or advanced, and 40.96 in the for the students that were in the public schools. Next is a slide that has to do with Danville's numbers from the 18-19. And as you can see, English is blue, math is dark blue, and science is gold. You can see the high school, the middle school, and Liberty Valley all have significantly greater scores than those particular cyber schools, which are where students of ours attend. Next. So what's it look like? We're looking at grades K to 5, and we can include them up to grade 12. They'll be using the online platforms, probably Accelerated Ed. We're going to, right now that's what we're using with our own teachers. We're going to review that and make considerations for next year, but this is what we're using at this time. For grades 6 to 12, we're also using Pearson GradPoint, and that's overseen by Danville teachers as well. So our students get a strong, consistent connection with the district. They have free access to online learning, and that it earns them a Danville diploma in the end, and that Danville diploma is extremely valuable. I'm not going to read all these comments. These are comments from various parents that what they've said about Ironman and e-learning academies. Basically, they've said that if at first they were a little bit reluctant, but they have seen their children grow, they have seen their children succeed, and they are very pleased with what has happened and how their children were able to continue to be Danville students with Danville support. Okay. So here's what it is. This is what your option is. This is one of the the items that we put out there for others to see and measure it. Mr. Chris Johns is our coordinator for the Danville Ironman Academy, and so he would be the contact person if anybody would need to have more information. And moving forward, we're going to review what we're using and make sure that it's the best program for what we're doing. We're very pleased at this time. And again, we can incorporate Danville curriculum because, as many people know, we have a very unique reading process and program that we've incorporated some very scientifically based, evidence-based procedures and processes into our curriculum. So we have now incorporated that into the Accelerate Ed. They allow us to add things to that. So that's a real positive move. We would continue with Grad Point for the students grades 6 to 12. That's been very successful. We are in the process of contacting the cyber parents who have students in the outside cybers. And we're going to discuss the options and try and help them see what we have to offer. There'll be newspaper advertising, more parent testimonies, and we're assigning teachers of record and teachers to monitor the cyber areas for the next school year. So we're looking at all these things to continue. And there's our ad, the Ironman Cyber Academy, Danville School District. So if anyone has any questions, they can get a hold of Mr. Johns or myself. But I want people to know how well it has worked this year with the support of the CSIU. We were able to implement a program that has been extremely successful, and I feel very positive for students. Any questions?
Hi, a question for our Ironman cyber students. Are they part of our district testing or our district accountability?
Yes, they would be.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is one of the biggest, one of many issues I have with cyber is the lack of accountability.
Right.
And parents need to understand accountability creates an environment where we are accountable to standards, we're accountable to teaching practices, we're accountable to students making progress. When you go into those cyber academies, there is no accountability, and that is that there's no oversight. They're able to just push kids through, and they are not able to meet the standards that we have set forth as a state.
Correct.
Add to it, they advertise that they are free. They are not free. I can't emphasize enough with the taxpayers of Danville, there is no such thing as free cyber school. It costs you. You might not pay out of your own pocket, but you pay with your taxes. And you saw those numbers tonight.
Right.
And they are crippling school districts with the cost of cyber.
Mhm.
And we can't allow it to continue. It's not sustainable. In defense of it, I think we have experienced, and especially as COVID I've experienced, some kids are successful.
Mhm.
Some kids are. I just want to make sure that those that are successful can continue to be successful in a cyber environment, and that those that are not are getting the services they need or are being referred back to school districts. There has to be accountability. If we're putting forth that much taxpayer dollar, there needs to be some kind of checks and balances.
Yeah, another area, academics is one, but the other thing is attendance. We can't even ask a cyber school to give us the attendance for that child. Even though we pay for that child to go there, we don't have any rights to ask for anything.
Well, and I did a calculation. 23% of your outside cyber students are identified.
Right.
As a school district, we're held accountable to the percentage of our population that's identified. And we are encouraged to be below 20%. So they already exceed that which the state encourages us to be at for those that are identified. And I've had many students who entered into cyber as regular ed and get identified as special education. And I have no say as a district in that.
Correct.
And we have no way of accountability for that. And that is, that's unacceptable. That's feeding your own habit by allowing them to identify kids and then charge 10 to 12,000 more per student once they've done that process.
Exactly. What I've done is I've gained a list of the students that we have who are now identified on the outside cybers, and I'm going to be exploring whether or not they were identified when they were here. Yeah,
So, Dr.
you're right.
Boyd, when you say they lose 140 days a year, how exactly do they don't show up and nobody asks the student?
That's part of it. Another part of it is they work at their own pace and they work independently. Like some of them do have Zoom and some classes, but you know, attendance isn't really well tracked in a cyber school. So the issue then involves these students. Not only that, their instruction may only be half of what we would do in a day's time. So we don't know exactly what they're doing, but we do know that they are behind.
Dr. Boyle, it's Jen Gursky. I've had
Yes.
I've had an opportunity to sit down and talk to your elementary teachers of record who are supporting your students K-5, and I just want to commend them both for their ability to meet with them face-to-face type of synchronous session where it's not just kids learning online out in a cyber charter world. They really do have interaction with their teachers. I would also like to commend them on their commitment to social and emotional learning. They build community during those sessions. They have fun, interactive things that they do with their children. And I think sometimes when we think about district-run cyber schools, the old adage of putting them online and sort of they're existing somewhere out in cyberspace. That is the power I think that Danville has under Chris John's leadership and your leadership and the expertise of these teachers. They're doing a great job connecting with children every day. So when we think about attendance, they're doing more than counting attendance. They're really connecting with children. And so I just want to say kudos to your team.
Thank you, Jen. Any other questions?
Anything else? Okay, thank you. That was very, very enlightening for sure. Okay, next order of business tonight, moving through our agenda is school property and supplies. Item 6.1, the board will take action to approve the sales agreement between Danville Area School District and Riverside Borough for property formerly referred to as Riverside Elementary School, Avenue A and 5th Street, Riverside, PA. There's a reference tax ID within the minutes here, and that property consists of 14.79 acres. And there's also record references in this document too. The Danville Area School District will receive $325,000 from Riverside Borough for the property as presented. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Reichert. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Where Terry picks.
Mrs. Fish,
Yes.
Dr. Tachu,
Yes.
Mr. Gordon,
Yes.
Dr. Gursky,
Yes.
Mr. Kirsch,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard,
Yes.
Dr. Uasa,
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, athletics and activities. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, pardon me.
The borough,
Excuse me.
the borough president, vice president, and members are here.
Yes.
I
sorry
want to
about
say thank you for working with us. We wish you the best. Your plan is definitely community minded, and it is a message that the district wants to send as being part of the community.
that. Excellent. Thank you for that. Awesome. Wonderful. Yep. Thank you. And thank you for that. Okay, athletics and activities. Spring coaching list is in front of us. Board will take action to approve the coaching list for the 2021 spring season as presented, pending the receipt of all clearances and documentation. The stipend will be paid at the end of the season, consistent with the 2020 through 2021 budget. Do I have a motion to approve?
I make that motion.
Thank you. Thank you. That'll be a roll call vote, please.
Dr. Tachu,
Yes.
Mr. Gordon,
Yes.
Dr. Gursky,
Yes.
Mr. Kirsch,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard,
Yes.
Dr. Uasa, Dr. Uasa,
Yes.
Mrs. Fish,
Yes.
Mr. Huron,
Yes. Motion carries. Mr. Johns? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right. Moving on to items 8, curriculum and management reports. Remediation and summer programming.
It looks like Mr. or Dr. Beckhart is not here. We'll
Oh.
table that for on
On
Zoom.
Zoom.
Oh, he's zooming.
Dr. Beckhart,
I'm here.
do you have anything to report on remediation and summer programming, please?
No, I know we talked about, Dr. Boyle and I are working with the principals on a plan. We're going to work through probably 2 options. One option being possibly some after school support as the year ends. And then our second option, looking at the best way to engage students this summer. We got to look at timing. We got to look at the amount of hours in a day, the different activities. I think we want to make sure it's not only academic, but, again, focusing on social, emotional, as well as physical activities. So we're working on that currently. I think we've got to see our staffing and then as well as our student interest in it. So we'll be putting that together over the next few weeks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, nothing tonight under the school community relations, even though we sort of had that built in tonight inherently. Finance section, Danville Area School District tax collection.
Yes.
You, Bobby?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
So it's official. The Danville Area School District has been deputized to collect school real estate taxes for 3 municipalities. I want to stress that it's only school real estate taxes, not the township or the county taxes. So when you get your bills, it will be 2 separate places you'll be sending those to. We will be collecting for Valley Township, Cooper Township, and West Hemlock Township. We are asking residents to pay attention to the tax bills that you will receive because it will have a new payable to name and address on the bill. And then if residents would like to make the payment in person, they would come to the district admin office, and we have office hours for tax payments Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 10 to 2, and that will also be printed on the tax bills. And then last, we're working on an option for online payments for those 3 townships starting in July for the new tax season in 2021. So stay tuned to that. So I'll bring you more information.
Thank you. Okay, item number 11, personnel. We have 3 items tonight. Offer up combining, is there a motion to combine 11.1 with 11.2?
I'll make that motion.
I'll
Thank you.
second.
Thank you. That'll be a roll call vote too, please.
Sorry. Mr. Gordon,
Yes.
Dr. Gursky,
Yes.
Mr. Kirsch,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard,
Yes.
Dr. Uasa,
Yes.
Mrs. Fish,
Yes.
Dr. Katachu,
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you.
I just want to thank Dan Haas, who doesn't happen to be here tonight, but he has been a 30-year employee of this school district. He has been able to take care of our buildings for all those years, and he is our go-to guy when we have anything historical we need to know. So he's going to be greatly missed by this school district.
Keep them on retainer just in case.
I have his cell phone number.
that's just as good, maybe better. Okay, thank you. Okay, item 11.3, grievance. Recommended action tonight, the board will take action to deny the grievance number 2021/01. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I second.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Mrs. Fish. That'll be a roll call vote too, please.
Dr. Gursky,
Abstain.
Mr. Kirsch,
Yes.
Mr. Reichard,
Yes.
Dr. Uasa,
Yes.
Mrs. Fish,
Yes.
Dr. Katachu,
Yes.
Mr. Gordon,
Yes.
Mr. Huron.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Nothing under policy insurance tonight, nothing under transportation tonight. Board concerns and any items at this juncture for next meeting? Or anything in particular from the board? I glance around the room. Anything from anybody? No? Okay. We're on to our second public comment opportunity. Same protocol. If you're interested in making public comment, I'm looking in the room. Yes, there is one gentleman that would like to share public comment. If you would step forward, please, to the mic. And kindly ask your name and address.
We might have to turn on that.
It's on.
It's
It's
on.
on.
Is it on?
Yep. There you go.
My name's John Domansky. I'm Borough Council President from Riverside Borough. And I just want to say thank you to the board for your vote on the property transaction. You just made our 150th anniversary celebration a little bit brighter. But you also gave us a lot of work now. But we certainly appreciate it. And I'm sure Pete and Barb appreciate it and the rest of the council.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're welcome. Appreciate those kind words. Okay, is there anybody else? I don't see anybody else in the room. Anybody out there, Jeff, that would like to make a public comment?
Please raise your hand if you'd like to make public comment in Zoom. No public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. With that said, do I have a motion to adjourn tonight?
I'll make a motion.
I'll
Thank-
second.
Okay. Voice? Yeah, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No? Motion carries. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.